Welcome back to A Moment in History. I'm 𝙎𝙐𝘽𝙎𝘾. Jerusalem is arguably the most important city in the history of the world, with over 3,000 years of history and the location where the Lord of the universe was crucified and rose again. There's little argument to that particular take. Now, add that to the fact that the city is claimed as the cream of the crop by not only Christianity, but also Judaism and Islam. Speaking of Islam, the most holy site in the religion is housed on the foundations of the Jewish Temple Mount, the place where Muslims claim their prophet Muhammad ascended into heaven. It is one of, if not the oldest site in Islam, the Dome of the Rock. Now, as I just said, the Dome of the Rock, which is a massive blue octagonal Muslim shrine with a golden dome that towers over the cityscape of Jerusalem, sits on top of what scholars believe to be the very ruins of the ancient Temple of Solomon. The dome is commonly referenced as the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which encompasses the whole complex of the Jewish Temple Mount. Now, this is quite possibly one of the most disputed areas in the world. Islam has claimed the land as its own, and often in violent terms, but Judaism has a far older claim to the land, which was commissioned by King David to be the spot for the new glorious Temple of God at the beginning of the 10th century BC. The temple was constructed and completed by David's son Solomon later on in that same century. Now, that particular temple was destroyed by the Babylonians in the 6th century BC, and then its lesser successor was demolished by the Romans in 70 AD. Several hundred years later, Jerusalem passed into Christian hands, but with the rise of Islam in the 7th century BC, Jerusalem became a coveted prize for the Muslims. Now, according to Islamic myth, the founding prophet Muhammad allegedly ascended into heaven from a rock in Jerusalem in the mid-7th century AD, and in the 630s AD, the Muslims sacked Jerusalem and took it out of Christian hands, and almost immediately thereafter, construction began of a holy site to commemorate the religion's founder in the years immediately after his death. Now, according to writings on the structure itself, the dome was built in 692 AD, making it possibly the oldest standing building in the history of Islam. This particular spot is coveted mightily, as we've already looked at, by all three Abrahamic religions. Jews in the Middle Ages actually believed that this spot also housed what is known as the foundation stone, where they allege the creation of the world took place. Christians, meanwhile, briefly held the Dome of the Rock during the early Crusades. In 1099, Christian knights recaptured Jerusalem, and the dome was converted into a church. Now, it would also serve as the primary headquarters for the Knights Templar, the most important Christian military order during the Crusades. You can check out Another Moment in History for more on that. Of course, this did not last long, as the Muslims recaptured the Holy City in 1187. Now, since then, the dome has undergone some updates, but remains the most important building in the history of Islam. Thanks so much for joining me once again for A Moment in History. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like and subscribe. And if you want us to cover one of your favorite moments in history, you can tell us in the comments. Now stay tuned for some new content.